Yeah, by now I'm sure you would have understood a bit about leadership skills, managerial skills, your personal experience, achievements, your strengths, your weakness. Now let's get into something very critical because these are all skills where you would be evaluated, and all these questions would come something like this. So this time, let's get into analytical skills. This is something every interviewer would love to understand that, because this is an essential skill. As a manager, there are so many things, data, problems. How do you analyze that? So let's see a couple of questions and see how the responses can be. So one is, just tell us about a particularly difficult problem that you have analyzed and what was your recommendation. Now, what kind of difficult problems? Now think about areas when you got stuck up, whether through a big customer or a client who was becoming a hindrance, or whether it was your performance which was not coming, or whether it was people related issue. Because once you are able to identify what was that problem, you need to just analyze, think about it. How did you analyze the problem? So there are certain steps that you had to think about it. What was the problem? What was the key issues? And this is which what were the solutions that you thought, and what was your recommendation? Now again, as I said, that you need to work it like a story. You know what was the problem and how you worked on it. Maybe you joined a new territory and you got something, a very bad situation. Maybe resources, the products, the supplies, there were a lot of issues, payments were issues. How did you overcome it and you were able to do it? So now it is not the situation or the example, it is about how you analyze the situation, and then basis which you were able to make the recommendation. So many a times what people make a mistake is they generally get into solution mode, that I did this, I did this, I did this. But before that, you need to say, what did you analyze? Because this is what they want to hear it out. What was your analysis? And that analysis led to certain actions. That is what you need to mention. Number two, do you consider yourself to be thoughtful, analytical, or do you usually make up your mind fast? Now, give an example. Now, this is where you need to be very smart, uh, because as a manager, you need to think about how thoughtful and analytical you are. Because you cannot just say that I just quickly take a decision, because if you quickly take a decision, there could be the repercussions of it. Because without thinking, you can't, you should not get into. So consider yourself to be thoughtful, analytical, and how did you do that? So think about various situations, examples that comes around you, that when they come to you, you take your time, particularly on bigger challenges. Maybe if you have to spend, let's say, 1,000 rupees for team motivation, you may not think, I mean, you will make up your mind fast. But if you have to really spend around an offsite meeting, you will take time. So this is how you can explain that, how do you use your analytical skills. What was, let's see the third question. What was your most difficult decision in the last 6 months? And what made it difficult? Now, this is something, a very tricky question, because it's a difficult decision. And difficult decision also means that you had to think a lot while taking that call, and it may go negative also when you speak. So generally, when it comes to difficult decisions, I'll give you one or two examples. One of the example is that when you had to terminate somebody. So why you had to terminate somebody, and what was the core reasons? So as I said that the issues could be non-compliance, the issues could be an attitudinal issue, and you must have put the person on PIP and still the person has not responded. So you had to take the call. But in case if you don't have that example, think about that areas where you had to cut down the expenses, tour expenses of one of your employee, and you know that now the person has to take the burden. It may be because the company had mandated that now there will be cost cutting. So instead of flights, people will have to go by train, or they have to charge less. So these are certain difficult situations that you had to take the call and do it. So what made it difficult? Because you can then elaborate on the examples. Now let's move up, and let's understand a couple of more questions on training and employee development. How would you go about training? Now, first, why they are asking this? They are asking this because they want to know that how do you welcome your new employee? What kind of structure you follow when you bring people? I'm sure there are many more steps, but these are some core steps that we are focusing on. or what are the steps to take identifying training requirements? Now, this is exactly another part of analytical skills and your dedication towards people development. So how do you assess people while they are on job? How do you assess people when they present and when they perform? And what are the things that you're working out? Are you really thinking about your people development? Then these are the steps. It's like another very soft question that can come to you, and you can narrate some examples that how you invested on your, how you gave exposure to your employees or your team to go into different kind of trainings, why you did so, what were the situations that happened at that time. Creativity. Now, in your work experience, what have you done that you consider truly creative? Now, creative is something that is already there and you thought of doing it in a different way. Because if you look at the second question, it also talks about, can you think of a problem you have encountered when the old situations didn't work? So that means that when the traditional way of doing things were not happening, what did you do irrational? And you thought about it out of the box, and that made a new way of, because sometimes what happens when you have taken such actions, they are and they are, if they are successful, they get implemented all over the country, and that becomes as an example. Last is self development. What has been the most important person or event in your own self development? Now think about people that has inspired you, share about their stories, and basis which you think about that is where you need. So if you sum total everything, it is all about you, and all about your recent past examples that you have been trying, doing, and building yourself with respect to just one with respect to how you have approached that problem and how you have been able to bring it as successful. Because many a times people struggle to give examples because they feel that if they give a negative example, it can bounce back on them. So start with that situation that was very difficult and tough, and how you were able to convert it to your benefit. So I'm sure there would be some idea you would have got. I'm open to your questions. If you have any, just reach me out. Thanks.